going to tell you a story today that illustrates what can happen to your words when you say something that you don't really mean to say. It's called Feathers in the Wind. It's a 19th century tale and takes place in a village. Karen went to the market every week on Tuesdays. One particular Tuesday, she went into town late morning as usual, and she went to the greengrocer's to stock up on her fruits and vegetables that she would need for the week. She went to Sam because she liked his potatoes the best, though there were several other choices in the marketplace. Well, as she was picking through the potatoes and choosing what she would need for the week, she noticed old Mrs. Dobbins paying for her things. She was very surprised to see Mrs. Dobbins handing over 3 large bills when all she had in her hands were a small bouquet of flowers and a bag of cherries. It seemed that Sam was overcharging Mrs. Dobbins tremendously, and Karen thought this was terrible, to take advantage of her age and do this. So she was rather suspicious and careful. When she finally got all her things together and went up to pay, she paid special attention as Sam weighed the items, and she added up in her head as he added the prices together to make sure that she did not get overcharged. Well, and then she went home, and later that day when she saw her neighbors, she told them that they had better watch out for Sam and make sure that they did not get overcharged. She wanted to warn them and not let the same thing happen to Mrs. Dobbins, to them. Well, the next week, on Tuesday, when she went into the market, she briefly thought about trying one of the other greengrocers, but decided that she really did like Sam's potatoes the best, and she would just be careful and watch to make sure she wasn't overcharged. She was surprised when she got there to discover that all his boxes were full of vegetables and fruit and potatoes. Usually by the time she got there, late morning, things were half empty. It wasn't too late, but there was definitely would be things gone. Now the boxes were full. Well, she collected her potatoes and her carrots and her onions and the other things that she needed, and she noticed old Mrs. Dobbins paying again. This time she was handing over 3 large bills, and all she had in her hand were 2 small plums. Well, Karen wasn't going to let Sam overcharge Mrs. Dobbins again, so she walked up to her and said, "Excuse me, Sam, but how can you take advantage of Miss Dobbins like this? You are charging her way too much money for those plums." Well, Mrs. Dobbins burst out laughing and said, "Oh, my dear, do you see that box over there behind the table? That's what I'm paying for. I can't possibly carry everything that I need home, and Sam is kind enough to save my things and deliver them to me at the end of the day when he is done. Oh, no, dear, Sam is a wonderful grocer, and he is doing me a huge favor." Well, Karen felt terrible, got red in the face, and just thanked Mrs. Dobbins for telling her and hurried home. Well, as soon as she got home, she told her neighbors what a mistake she had made, and that they needed to just disregard what she said before and go back to shopping at Sam's. So the following week, she goes into the marketplace, again her usual time, late morning, and there is Sam's stand, full to the brim. Nothing looks like it had been touched. No people in place. And Karen just was devastated. And she went up and she said, "I'm so sorry. I think that I mistakenly said something that I shouldn't have said, and I'm just so sorry about that." Well, and Sam was sorry too. He said, "Yeah, it's been rough. 2 weeks, and there are many of my regular customers I haven't seen at all." Well, Karen said, "What do you think I can do?" And he said, "I don't know, maybe you should visit the wise man. He might know what to do." So she went off to the wise man's house, and explained her situation and said, what do you think that I can do? How can I, I would like to be forgiven and I would like to fix things. And the wise men nodded and said, this is a difficult situation. Well, I have something I want you to do. Go home and collect one of your feather pillows and meet me at the top of the hill outside of town. So she went off, she went home, collected her pillow, and headed out to the hill, climbed to the top of the hill where the wind was starting to pick up because it was outside of town and it was a windy day. And she met the wise man at the top. He told her to cut open the pillow, which she did, and to shake out all the feathers out over the hillside. Well, after she did that, some of the feathers fell down into clumps, but many of them floated out over the hillside, through the fields, drifting off, some being picked up by the wind and carried high into the air, others going right and left. And after most of the feathers had drifted away and settled down, Karen said to the wise man, well, is that it? What happens now? And he said, well, that's what happened to your words. So if you would like to fix this, you need to go pick up every one of those feathers again and put them back into the pillowcase. Karen realized how impossible that was and thought hard about the words she said, which are also scattered about, impossible to bring back. And that's the story of the feathers in the wind.